Now, joining me to discuss the recent resurgence of insecurity in the northern part of Nigeria is security expert Jaye Gaskia. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, what do you make of the resurgence of violence in the northern part of the country after a period of relative calm? And what could you say is fueling this fresh wave of attacks?
Thank you very much for having me. I think that there are a combination of reasons and factors why we witness a resurgence. And I know that people sometimes don't like to also, mention some of the facts that are obvious. But if we look at the history of violence in our communities and in our country, we see this cycle of resurgence, and it may, just like the minister alluded to in that in his when in that interview, we cannot also completely rule out the fact that politics may also be playing quite a big role in the current dispensation, because usually when we are mid-term and beginning the second half of a regime, and people are beginning to prepare and mobilize again for elections in less than a year or a year and a half. We begin to see some of these mobilization of grievances, and when that is done, then people, conflict entrepreneurs, people who are simply just would derive some benefits from violence and conflict, are also watching the situation, and they also seem to want to take advantage of the situation. So sometimes people like these who organize this kind of criminal attacks and activities also look to see a period when they think that there is quite a number of fault lines in the context, in terms of the relationship between politicians and so on and so forth, and so therefore also relative vulnerability of communities, and then they strike. They seize that opportunity to strike. So we cannot completely rule out the fact that that may be a factor. That said, I think that the biggest challenge really with and why insecurity seems to we seem to be having this resurgence of insecurity in more or less like in a cyclical manner. More or less even predictive cyclical manner is really because of also what I would call the complete emasculation of the third tier of government and the complete absence of governance at the local government level. The minister again mentioned the fact of talking to local governments and the rest of that, but I mean simply, there are really no local governments, and so who are you really talking to? So until you do have a government at that level that can respond to issues, not just the issues of development, but also the issues of security, then it will be very difficult to actually contain this.
All right. Sorry to cut you short, but now let's talk about the people. We see that the people in just staged a protest. Now, from a security standpoint, how effective do you think peaceful protests like this would draw the attention of the government, and they would actually make actions to protect these people?
Yeah, I mean, basically, people are protesting because really now you have to really take your own, you have to take your destiny into your own hands, because it seems as if people have been abandoned. They seem to be not to be protected. So the best way, the best way for people actually to act now, other than to take the laws into their hands, is this kind of peaceful protest to call the attention, to draw the attention of government and relevant government authorities to this institution. But this people have taken their own initiative. I would also expect what is lacking really now is actually the initiative on the part of leadership and on the part of the elite, and so it's difficult. I would expect that given the context of Plateau State, given the context of Benue State, in the North Central generally, where conflicts that are arising from this kind of unscrupulous attacks on innocent people can easily take on ethnic and religious divisions. One would expect that this is the time that the leadership and the elite across religious lines, across ethnic lines, would actually be mobilizing. I would have loved to see a situation where, rather than just seeing for example, Christian leaders mobilizing. I would have loved to see a situation where it's an interfaith thing, and you are seeing both Christian and Muslim leaders out there leading, jointly leading, so that they are sending a message to citizens that this is not one faith against the other faith, but these are just criminal elements against the whole of society.
All right, security expert Jai Gaskia, thank you so much for lending in your thoughts, as always.